drive your lane. Without question, this is the most important lesson that must be learned. If you induce serious steering wheel input, especially with a rear wheel failure, you may lose control. Why accelerate? It's simple. You want to maintain your forward vector. If you brake, your vector will revert to the side of the blowout. So how long do you accelerate for? Just for a moment after the blowout occurs to counteract the initial side vector force from the blowout. After that, you can slow down and stop safely. Yes, taking your foot off the accelerator while driving your lane will also work. However, we've found that when you do that, it's only natural to put your foot on the brake. You know what that will do? So, let's review. Most front and rear blowouts should be non-events, and they will be if the driver responds correctly. Steer straight and accelerate. It doesn't take much driver input to stay in control. It's all up to you. Hydroplaning. We've all experienced it. It's that really weird feeling when your car won't respond to your steering input because your tires are riding on top of the water instead of on the road. With the help of Michelin's Bob Walker, we were able to capture and study the effects that various speeds, tire pressure, and water depths had on hydroplaning. Bob's underground camera system uses the latest in digital imaging to capture tires during hydroplaning as they pass through a sophisticated, automatic, self-leveling trough of water that can be filled to any level up to 1/2 inch. We added green dye to the water to heighten the contrast of the image. We used just 3/16 of an inch of water for our tests, which is a typical water depth found on highways after a rainstorm. As you can see, that's not a lot of water, but our results will amaze you. Here's how the test works. The control computer senses the approaching vehicle and triggers the underground camera to take a high-resolution image. At 1/200th of a second, that stops the tire at any speed and gives us a clear view of the contact patch area of the subject tire. For these tests, we used only brand new tires. To see what effect speed and inflation pressure had on hydroplaning, we settled on two distinct speeds, 30 and 60 miles an hour. We also decreased the air pressure in 5 psi increments, going from 45 psi down to a low of 20 psi. And boy, were we surprised at the results. As you can see, at 30 miles per hour and at every tested inflation pressure, the tire displayed a nearly full contact patch, proving that speed plays a critically important role in reducing the effects of hydroplaning. However, as soon as we increased our speed to 60, the results changed dramatically. At the highest pressures, 40 and 45 psi, you can see that there is a sufficient contact patch across the tread face, but it is certainly less than what we found at 30 miles per hour. At 35 psi, which is the recommended inflation pressure for the Crown Vic, we found the contact patch reduced even more. Yes, there was still total contact, but it was reduced significantly. What we found at 30 psi opened our eyes. At just a 5 psi drop from recommended, we found that we did not have contact across the tread face. It would seem that hydroplaning would occur. Remember, that's only a 5 psi drop from recommended. At 25 psi, the complete tread face was hydroplaning. We only had contact at the shoulder area. The tire was gone. We all know the importance of air pressure. However, this adds a new dimension to our thinking. Now, just imagine what would happen if one tire was at 30 psi, another at 35, and the other two were around 25 when you hit wet pavement. One tire would grab, while the others might not. You could find yourself suddenly fighting for control. Well, it's time for new tires for your vehicle. But you only need 2, so where do you put them? Some people say the front, others the rear. What do you think? In order to show you the surprising differences of mounting 2 new tires on the front versus the rear of your vehicle, we did exactly that. On the Blue Crown Vic, we mounted new tires on the rear and half-worn tires on the front. On the White Crown Vic, we mounted the new tires on the front and the worn tires on the rear. Our test site was Michelin's wet skid pad, commonly known as B2. This 25-foot wide track is a half-mile around, made of smooth concrete. It has about 25 feet of runoff on each side. A series of water sprinklers, spaced equally around the track's edge, provide an even water distribution of 3 to 5 millimeters across the track's surface. Our test involved driving both vehicles around the wet track, increasing speed until they hydroplaned. We eliminated the inflation pressure variance by making sure that all tires were at the same pressure. Again, repeatability is everything. We did this demonstration over and over again to prove once and for all the effect of new tire positioning. Sergeant Bowman drove the Blue Crown Vic, while Mac DeMere drove the white one, with Mickey Zambellis in the passenger seat. With the Blue Crown Vic in the lead, it was Mac's job to simply stay as close to the blue vehicle as possible. Faster and faster they went around the skid pad until they reached a top speed of 55 miles an hour. Let's see what happens. There it goes! The White Crown Vic could not stay with the blue one. Why? Because the worn tires on the rear of the white vehicle hydroplaned faster than the new front tires. While the new front tires are holding the wet road, the rear tires are losing their grip, requiring oversteering and loss of control. As you can see, repeat tests gave us the same result, a complete loss of control of the vehicle every time. Let's look at it again from a different angle. See? The Blue Crown Vic is much more stable in the wet than the white one. Mac, a seasoned and well-qualified test driver, could not keep up with Sergeant Bowman. As soon as critical speed was reached, Mac lost it every time. Let's watch again, this time on split screen, from both angles. So why does this loss of control occur? Remember, the new tires have deeper tread and will grip the road and channel water more effectively than the worn tires. As the tires go through standing water, and if the tires with the deeper tread are on the front, the rear tires will hydroplane first. If the rear tires lose traction because of hydroplaning, the rear will begin to fishtail, and the driver can lose control. This is far less likely to happen when the new tires are mounted on the rear. If there is any loss of traction on the front tires, the driver will feel it through the steering wheel and make the necessary speed and/or steering corrections to reduce the likelihood of spinning out of control. After watching what can happen, which vehicle would you want to be in? Remember, when you need only 2 tires, mount the new tires on the rear, not the front. It doesn't matter whether the vehicle is front wheel or rear wheel drive. Always mount 2 new tires on the rear. Low inflation pressures in your tires can have significant adverse effects on your vehicle's performance and your safety. In fact, it can rob you of speed and compromise handling in both wet and dry conditions. Using Michelin's miniature Grand Prix track, known as T3, we tested our tires' adhesion properties using the various twists and turns at maximum speeds. This half-mile asphalt track has evenly spaced sprinklers that can create an even water depth along the entire route. In this test, the tires on the blue vehicle were inflated to their recommended air pressure of 35 psi. At the same time, the front tires on the white vehicle were inflated to 35 psi, and the rear tires were inflated to 25 psi. That's a 10 psi difference between the 2 axles. Again, repeatability is everything. Our test driver, Mac Demir, drove each vehicle around T3 as fast as he could for 5 laps.